Hello everyone and welcome back to 30 minutes of chat this lunchtime in honour of Whole Women's Week and International Women's Day. I'm Christina Lewis and I've got the very lovely job of talking to all kinds of incredible women this week about their careers, about their lives and about their journeys up to this point. And today I am joined by whole novelist, writer, Louise Beech. Hello, Louise.
Hello, Chrissy. It's so lovely to see you. It's forever.
I know, it has been forever, and it's an absolute treat to have you here. So thank you so much for agreeing to it. Now, Louise probably doesn't need a huge introduction, and I haven't got time actually to give you the accolades that her writing has garnered over the past few years, but I'm going to give you a couple of headline passes at it. So Louise's debut novel, How to Be Brave, was released in 2015, and since then she's released an eye-wateringly prolific 5 books, with a new one out this June called This Is How We Are Human. I saw you do a brilliant video yesterday of you opening the copies for the first time. I love that.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
Do you know what was funny though? I did think when I was doing it, I really hope this is my book, otherwise this video is going to be very strange. If it's like the batteries that my husband's ordered, I thought this is going to be a weird video.
Well, I did laugh. I was thinking, oh God, I hope it's not an Amazon delivery. Louise, there's not much. Louise hasn't been longlisted, shortlisted for, or won. Just to give you a couple of examples, she's been longlisted for the Guardian Not the Booker Prize twice. Is that right, Louise? Yeah. She's been longlisted for the Polari Prize. Her novel The Lion Tamer Who Lost was shortlisted for the Romantic Novel of the Year. She was Best Magazine Book of the Year for Call Me Stargirl. The list goes on and on. But Louise, I'd like to just go right back to the beginning and ask, have you always been a writer?
Yes, I have always been a writer. I think sometimes, like with music or anything like that, it's something that's in your DNA, isn't it? I think some people are writers and they are going to tell stories by whatever means available. I mean, I suppose if they can play music, that's how they'll do it. If they can write, that's how they do it. So yeah, I used to write stories because I had quite a tumultuous childhood, shall we say, and I used to write stories to escape and get through, and that has stayed with me throughout my life. So it took me through my teenage years. I did some things for like the school magazine, that kind of thing, but then when I was doing my A-levels, I got pregnant with my son, so I never went to university and everything was put on hold. So it took a long time, and I finally got my book deal at the age of 44. That's how long it took. But writing in that time, constantly writing and trying. Yeah. I know. So yeah.
That's amazing. But I know personally that that was always your dream, wasn't it? And you were never going to give up on that. And in fact, that's kind of one of your pieces of advice, which we'll come to later. But I know that you always say, don't ever give up on your dreams.
I do, because it's really simple, isn't it? It's like, if you give up, right, you are not going to get published. That's a fact. If you give up. Whereas if you keep going, there's every chance you could. Because every book on a bookshelf that you see in a shop was by someone who didn't give up. It's that simple. And that's what I used to say to myself all the time. Just because I got lots of rejections. I mean, my first 4 novels were rejected over a period of about 8 years by every publisher. And it's hard to keep going after that and think, maybe I'm just not any good. And then I just kept thinking, no, I don't know. It was a faith in myself of thinking, I am good enough. Just keep going. Yeah.
Because when we first met, I think you had a column in the Whole Daily Mail, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Oh, gosh, that's going back. I think that finished about 10 years ago. It was about my kids. And obviously my kids grew up and then, you know, I didn't have anyone to write about. So yeah, I did. Wow. Of course, yeah. Mum's the word, and then it was working mum. Yeah.
That's right, because I know it was really, really popular. It was really funny.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, it was very light and fun. It's like a diary. I mean, I've got them all upstairs in the drawer. So it is a diary. Oh yeah. Oh, it's really weird to read them. Oh my God, my poor kids. What I wrote about them in that paper.
Oh, what a lovely thing to have, though, because obviously it would be so reactive to what you were going through that week or what was happening or whatever. So they're things probably that are forgotten now if you were just keeping them in your head. But how lovely to have them all there.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The floods happened while I was writing. My grandma died while I was writing. My stepdad, he died of cancer, and all these things kind of are in there, written about forever. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously it's been a very difficult year for a lot of people. We've had COVID, we've had various lockdowns. How that affected? Obviously, I know that you launched a book, I Am Dust, last year. So I kind of, well, we might be able to guess the answer to this question, but has COVID affected your creativity in any way, or has it enhanced it?
Maybe I'm one of them rare ones, because I have got a lot of writer friends who, oh, I feel so sad for them, who are saying, I can't do it. It's like I'm blocked and we can't write. But yes, for me, because when I was little, I wrote during difficult times. It feels very natural for me to write when times are tough and to escape that way. So it's almost like I've written more. Like I wrote two books last year. I wrote my memoir and like a dystopian novel, which God knows what will happen with that, set in a future where books are banned. It was inspired by Rishi Sunak's, retrain, forget the arts, retrain. And I thought, can you work without books? Can you even imagine that? So yeah, I've been quite prolific, and it's an escape, Chrissy. It's like I go into that world. This world doesn't exist anymore, just for a brief time.
Do you have a routine then, Louise? Are you one of these amazing writers who gets up at a certain time and writes, or do you just do it when the will takes you? How does it work?
I'm always writing in my head, obviously, as I go about my business. But with regards to sitting at the computer and actually writing, yes, I'm a stickler for routine. I do get up quite promptly. Even during lockdown, I was quite good. And I tend to go for a walk, because I live near the river, Humber, so I'm quite lucky. I go for a walk, come back, usually at my desk by 8:30, 9, and I write best in the morning. I'm one who's alert straight away. Yeah. Right. And then I'm tired by about 3, and then I'm kind of done by 3. So yeah.
Oh, I'm always really interested in kind of writers writing routines, because I speak to some writers who are just like, oh, I'll just scribble down something just when the mood takes me. And then obviously there's other writers who are very considered in their writing routine. But I just think it's so interesting how we all work differently.
Yeah, and I always think I never give advice in the regard of, do what I do, because it doesn't work for everyone, does it? We have to start. I would just say, do what you need to do. That's your way.
Yeah. So a slightly broader question then, as a female writer, a very successful female writer, have you encountered, would you say, any obstacles because you're female?
Do you know what? I really thought hard about this, because you were kind enough to sort of indicate what we were going to talk about. And I genuinely can't think of anything. And I'm quite surprised by that, because I would have thought I would. I have, because of my class and not going to university. But is that wrapped up in that? I don't know. I'd often be asked, what my degree was in and this kind of thing. And I don't have one. But no, with regards to being a woman, I wouldn't say that I can think of it. So either I've been lucky, maybe we live in now where for the last 10 years it has improved, hasn't it, vastly? Yeah, could be that. Because obviously I only got published 6 years ago, and so times are better now, aren't they?
Yeah, it feels like I think we're moving in the right direction. But you talking about class, that's really, really interesting, because I've encountered that as well. I mean, I don't have any kind of literature degree at all, and there is an element, dare I say it, I think, of snobbery in the literary world, and an expectation that you've got a lot of letters at the end of your name, or that you have studied, and sometimes just people hear your accent and they make an assumption straight away that, she couldn't be a writer, or it's quite interesting actually, and until you've experienced it, I don't think you really would be aware of that.
Absolutely. I know that HarperCollins publishers have started Harper North, which is part of them that is publishing Northern literature. That proves to me there's an issue, because it's like Black Lives Matter. We need that because there's an issue. own voices, that hashtag and movement. We need that because, you know, minority groups, there's an issue. So why are we having, you know, a publishing company setting up in the north? Because there's an issue of not listening to northern voices.
Mm.
Very true.
Mm. So
we're very vocal.
Yeah, very vocal. It's a good job as well.
Yeah, I know.
So obviously you said that you got your first publishing deal when you were 44. What advice would you give to any women at any stage in their writing career, whether they're just starting out or maybe they've been writing for years and years and years and they're hiding it all in a bottom drawer? What if anyone wants to get their work out there, what would you say is the best advice?
Okay, for me, it involved starting off smaller, I suppose, writing short stories, writing articles, being lucky enough to get my column and doing that to gain the confidence, and then entering my short stories in competitions, maybe having a few published, a few shortlisted, and that kind of thing, and getting the confidence that way, and then moving on to writing the novel. So let's say you have written a novel, you've got it in your drawer, definitely get some friends, possibly readerly friends, maybe who love literature or love reading and writing, to read it for you to start with. I mean, they do recommend going down the route of trying to get an agent, but I don't have an agent. So it's really hard to give advice, because the advice that everybody gives is not the advice I give, you know, like have the degree, maybe possibly work in publishing or journalism, and then you're through the door, so to speak. That's the proper advice, yeah. But that's not how I did it. I did it in an opposite way with, you know, very little education. I think luck and chance and putting myself out there and being a little bit cheeky, because I got my publisher because I tweeted her, which is not the done thing. Not the done thing.
Brilliant.
I tweeted her with like a description of the novel and would you be interested? And because she was a brand new publisher, she said, yeah, okay, send it to me. And I was lucky that she loved it. So maybe a little bit of cheek can go a long way, as long as you're polite, you know, and smiley and friendly and all that. But I do think it goes a long way having confidence in yourself and your own voice, because the one thing in writing that you've got that no one else has is your voice. Do you know what I mean? That is the only thing that's unique in your writing, and it's finding that and having the confidence to stand up for it, so to speak, and just be great with it. That's probably not very good advice because it sounds a bit big.
No, I think that's brilliant advice, because it's such a crowded market, isn't it? You know, I would imagine that publishers and agents are drowning under piles of manuscripts sent to them every day. Yeah. And I think to have faith in yourself, like you've said, and we all get rejections, and it's really, really hard, isn't it? Because writing is so personal and you make yourself very vulnerable in your writing. So when someone kind of rejects it, it's kind of like a bit of a stab wound, really. It's like, you know, you begin to think, oh, am I not very good? Why won't these people publish me? So you've got to have that faith and have a tough skin.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Absolutely. Because no one else is going to believe in you like you do until you hopefully find that person, that publisher, that mentor, that agent who does. You know, once you find someone who believes in you like you do, well, that's wonderful. You know, if that finally happens, it's wonderful.
What did it feel like when you kind of got that call or that email that said, we're going to publish How to Be Brave? You must have been just beside yourself.
I don't even have words. It was like one of the best days of my life. I mean, it was the 9th of February at about 9 o'clock in the morning. That's how important it is that I remember that. And I just like walked around the room with the information in my head, because I was on my own at home, and I was like, I just can't believe it. I was speechless. I probably cried and then danced and and then told everyone and bragged and then celebrated. And yeah, it was one of the best. Do you know what? Probably the best moment of my career, definitely.
Yeah.
Moment. Yeah.
And what I find amazing about you is, like I said earlier, how prolific you are. I mean, some people release a novel in 10 years or in 6 years, and you've pretty much released a novel every single year, even during lockdown, and they've all been amazing. So you must have so much drive as a writer. Have all of these ideas been with you all along, and it's like you're kind of writing them now? How does it work?
Right, I was lucky in the sense that when I got my book deal, I'd already written 4. Everyone forgets that. So I was 4 ahead of myself. I'd written 4 books and they'd all been rejected. So I kind of knew I was safe for a year or two, thinking, oh, I'm good here. And obviously then there comes a time where it's like, now you've got to write another one. So some of them were, you know, older novels from 10 years ago. Some ideas are brand new, yes. Some come to me in a flash where I'm like, wow, that's an interesting one. Others, like my memoir, which I wrote last year, are ones that I've always wanted to write, and I just have to wait for the right moment. And, you know, and that right moment, I was waiting for an opening point to my memoir. I was thinking what would be powerful. And then very sadly, 2 years ago, almost to the day, it was at the weekend. I mean, you know my mum. My mum jumped off the Humber Bridge, but luckily she survived. It was a suicide attempt. And when that happened a few months later, I thought, that's so powerful, and what a way to open a memoir with that, and then, you know, flashbacks to my childhood. And so then I knew I had to write it when that happened. So sometimes life gives you the story, we could say. Sometimes it's an idea. Sometimes it's someone else's story. My brand new one, which I'm so excited.
That is beautiful. Can I just say that is a beautiful cover.
Well, this was inspired by a friend of mine. You might know her, Fiona Mills on BBC Radio Humberside. Lovely, isn't she? Lovely Irish woman. Her son's autistic, and they were having a bit of a dilemma, shall we say, a couple of years ago, where he had got to 20, really wanted to meet a girl, and he was just having so much trouble because of being on the spectrum and being able to speak to girls, and young girls maybe being a bit nervous around him and not knowing how to act. And he just desperately wanted to meet somebody, and there was no advice out there. There's no like sexual advice for people who are either on the spectrum or have some sort of difficulty or learning disability. There's no advice or help. And she was telling me this, and I just thought, oh, that needs to be a story somehow to address it. And that was what that book is.
That's out in June in paperback, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very exciting. So can we talk? I've asked various women who I've been speaking to this week the same question in a roundabout way, but yours is slightly different because I'm really interested in your characters. So I wanted to ask you that if you had a dinner party and any of your characters could attend, who would you want to spend time with?
Oh gosh, right. Let me think. Right, definitely Catherine Maria, who was in my Maria in the Moon book, who is a woman who was, she's very, people often call her spiky. I love that word. She's a northern girl, very blunt, very sweary, but she had a very traumatic childhood, and that's why. And she's got a really kind of a sick sense of humour. She says it like it is, and I think, right, she will be a laugh. She would be really good fun. And then Sebastian, who's in my new one, the young autistic man, he would be interesting to have for dinner. And my first novel was about my grandfather, who was lost at sea during the war. I never met him because sadly he died before I was born. So I'd love it if he was also at my dinner table and I could, you know, ask him about that and what that was like, because I had to imagine that when I wrote the book. So that would be good. Yeah.
That'd be a good dinner party.
Wouldn't it? What a mix.
Would be great.
Mix. Oh,
what really comes across talking to you is how much of yourself you put in your work. Would you say that's right? There's a lot of your stories, there's a lot of your history in there.
Yeah, it does weave its way in there. Even if the story isn't like mine, there'll be little bits that, little things I love or places I like. They will creep in. Yeah, I can't kind of help that.
It happens, doesn't it? So who, in terms of work or authors, has been particularly inspirational to you along the way?
Okay, there's a lovely woman called Madeline Black, who's a big activist now. She does a lot of TED Talks, and she used to be a counsellor. So her tale was a very tragic one, but she's turned her life around, and she wrote a book about it. So basically, when she was just 13 years old, she was gang raped by 2 men who were never caught, and they held her captive for 24 hours and did horrific things. And as a result of that, she never told anyone. And she went through a very traumatic few teenage years, you know, self-abuse, drugs, promiscuity. She was in psychiatric units, and she kind of buried it and forgot it, for want of a better word. And then when her own daughter hit that age, it all came back to her, and she kind of had a breakdown. But then she had a lot of therapy, got through it, and she realised she needed to talk about it to help other people. So she wrote a book called Unbroken, which is so powerful, but don't read it in public because you will cry. I was on the bus and I was like, you know, I had my sunglasses on and I was hidden away, crying my eyes out. So it's really powerful because it's about forgiveness, and she's forgiven them. And she said that's the only way to move on, is to forgive them. And then now she talks, does a lot for the Me Too movement. She's been interviewed by like Trevor McDonald, by Jeremy Vine about it. And so that book for me is one that I think women should read, and look her up, Madeline Black. She's fantastic. She's the loveliest person. Lovely.
Wow.
You wouldn't think something like that had happened to her because she's so generous and kind, and she puts you at ease in her company. I've been lucky enough to do some events with her, and I just love her to bits. She's a huge inspiration to me. So yeah, Madeline.
Wow, what story.
I know.
Okay, so what's next for you then? More writing, obviously. Have you got stories in there that are bursting to come out?
Yes, I've just started another one. I think it's number 10. I think it's number 10. Yeah. I'm writing about sisters who have been separated in their childhood and then going to be reunited. I realised that I've written about every aspect of family life, friendship, love, you name it, everything. I've never written about siblings. And the weird thing is, my siblings are my best friends, and I'm surprised I've never written about it. So that's what I'm working on now. Beyond that, well, whatever comes to me, I don't know.
I love on the back of your latest book, you're described as genre fluid, aren't you?
Isn't it good?
And that is one of the things that I really admire about you, is that you do not stick to a genre. You tackle crime, you tackle literary fiction, you're literally straddling genres.
Yeah, I came up with that, the genre fluid. I was at an event and I just said it. I said, I think I'm just genre fluid, and it stuck. And then my publisher ends up using it on the book, and I thought it's great. It does make it a bit troublesome though, because when it comes to actually trying to get published, it's a bit of a problem if you don't know what you are and you don't fit in a box. It can be, it can be problematic. I mean, even for me now, I think my publisher probably thinks every time, what am I going to get this time?
I bet they love it. I bet they're like, what's Louise? Is it psychological thriller? Is it going to be romance? What's Louise writing this time? It's quite exciting.
Western next. Shall I write like a northern sci-fi western?
Mash them all together.
Yeah, mash up next. Yeah, mash them up.
Fab. Well, Louise, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. I suppose we should end on asking, if people want to get their hands on your latest novel due out in June, how do they do it? This is How We Are Human. There it is.
There it is. Yes, if they want to buy it, they can get it in ebook in April. It comes out on the 10th of April as an ebook, 10th of June as a paperback, and it'll be like, you know, Amazon, indie stores, Waterstones, the usual places. I really hope by then maybe we'll be able to have a book launch.
We'll Actually, before we disappear, is that something that you've really missed, kind of connecting with other writers in person?
Oh God, yes, because obviously writing's very solitary. Oh, yeah. So much. I cannot wait to do some, you know, because I work at the theatre and I'm not doing that. I go on the radio, I'm not doing that. No book events. Yeah. So, yeah.
I didn't actually think about that, because you are such a sociable person. And obviously, like you say, writing is incredibly solitary, but when you're forced into solitude because of the past year, that must have been like triply difficult for you.
Yeah, because my kids don't live at home, so I don't even get to see my kids. Now that's what I found hard, is I don't see my kids, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. Yeah, fingers crossed. Are they at uni?
Yeah, Katie, my daughter, is at uni, and my son just lives in Mansfield, and that's where he works. So yes, I know.
Oh, fingers crossed for some family knees up very soon, I hope.
Yeah.
You know.
For everyone.
Well, thank you, Louise. Brilliant to talk to you. Good luck with the new book. It'll be another belter. I know it will. And thank you for joining us today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. My pleasure.